There is a grand jury meeting in Georgia. It has become national headlines as the media hopes for a silver bullet to arrest, indict, and throw Trump in jail. Not sure we're going to get there. There are a couple of different pieces and a couple of different things that are happening. They're working in tandem. I want to be able to explain them to you. And first, I have to deal with DeKalb County, Georgia. In DeKalb County, Georgia, there is supposed proof of election machines stealing an election. That's not actually what happened. This all ties together. Follow along with me. It's all become a national story. The conspiracy theorists are fixated on this stolen election in DeKalb County. Here's what happened in DeKalb County. That is the county, for those of you outside the Atlanta area, that is immediately to the east of Fulton County, Atlanta. It is the county seat is Decatur, Georgia. It is a far left progressive county. In DeKalb County, a number of people were running for a race. There were 4 people in the race. It was in only part of the county. Because of redistricting, a couple of the precincts that should have been in that district were not in, and a couple that should not have been were in. So that was one part of the screw up of this race. But where a lot of people are focusing is a woman who wound up winning the race actually looked like she had lost because she got no votes, including in her own precinct, even though she voted for herself. What happened? Well, what happened was a massive screw up at the precinct level. So there were 4 people in the race. The third person in the race on the ballot, number 3 on the ballot position, dropped out. So that left 3 people in the race. Well, a number of the precincts did not update their ballots. So the number 4 person was still in the number 4 slot, but there were now only 3 people in the race. That third person should have been deleted. So when the machines were actually counting the ballots, when the actual machines were counting the ballots, they were looking for 3 people in the race. So if you were in the number 4 slot, they didn't count your votes. The machines that count the votes had been updated. The display machines in which you count when you cast your vote were not. That was it. That's all that happened. It was contained to this particular race, in this particular district, in this particular county. Now, what you've got to understand, and this is where people just put a period at the end of the sentence and say, aha, proof. What you have to understand is the system worked. They caught it. They knew there was a problem. One, the candidate who voted for herself in her own precinct saw that her precinct generated 0 votes for her. They knew there was a problem. They also audited the machines, and they realized that there was a problem. All the procedures in place worked to catch the problem. This was not a matter of voter fraud. This was a technical error on machines because they didn't update them in the precincts before Election Day. They caught the error, and they had to redo the race as a result. So the system actually worked. The system actually found there was an error. The system actually figured out how the error was caused. The system corrected the error, and they held a new vote. If it was actual fraud, if it was actual error, it would have gone on. The woman would have lost. Instead, she won the race. This is only a matter for the conspiracy theorists. Do they say that this is proof of something happening? Yes, there was a problem. But the issue is, did the system catch the problem? Then the system caught the problem. And they redid the race. And they have refined the book now. They make sure that everybody updates those machines on election morning. And that was the problem. In a number of precincts, the precinct workers should have updated the machines, and they chose not to. Now, how was it fixed? How did they catch it? Well, they counted by hand. Remember, the ballots display the votes. So they were able to hand count the ballots and realize what the error was, and they redid the election because the hand-counted ballots don't actually certify an election. The machines do. When they realized they could not certify the machines because of the discrepancy, they had to redo the election. And it all worked. The whole system worked. The system, as designed, figured out what the error was, and they solved it. So the conspiracy theorists are wrong yet again. They are a bunch of liars, and they are lying to you because they want you to be convinced Donald Trump had the race in Georgia stolen from him, when even today, Peter Navarro, the president's economics chief, is admitting Donald Trump lost. It wasn't stolen from him. Everybody's moving on except the bitter clingers. Now, that is a separate issue. A lot of people are tying these things together. It's actually a separate thing from the grand jury. Fani Willis is the district attorney for Fulton County, Georgia, and into her lap fell the inquiry into Donald Trump. Now, there are two separate things happening you need to understand. There are two separate investigations, all being looked at by a special grand jury impaneled to investigate the 2020 election outcome. A special grand jury cannot indict. A special grand jury can make a recommendation for an impaneled grand jury, the regular grand jury, to come in and do an indictment. Fani Willis is a Democrat. She's actually a reformer. She is far better as a DA than the prior DA. The prior DA she ran against, she had worked in his office. That DA was very corrupt. He was out prosecuting police officers, trying to make police officers the bad guys during the riots after George Floyd, when really the police were doing their job. He got thrown out of office for corruption and other things. She came in and she's given this. Well, she's also a partisan Democrat. One of the issues is on Donald Trump, and did Donald Trump try to exert undue pressure on elected officials to overturn the election? The key here are his conversations with Brian Kemp and Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State. It appears Donald Trump did pressure Brad Raffensperger to find new votes, to attempt to find new votes. Raffensperger did not. I'm not exactly sure what the crime is here, but you know the way the media works these days is Trump bad, investigation good, go to jail. The actual law doesn't really matter so much as investigating Donald Trump. In all honesty, you've got a lot of Democratic lawyers pulling arguments out of their backside to say, yes, Donald Trump should go to jail for doing this. I don't know that he broke the law. Did he bribe Brad Raffensperger? He certainly threatened Brad Raffensperger. He threatened Raffensperger. That could be criminal liability because he threatened the Secretary of State to punish him if he did not overthrow the election. That could be. He also went after Brian Kemp. Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, is having to testify before the grand jury. He's not given a choice. You can't avoid these sorts of things. When the grand jury subpoenas you, you have to go. Even Lindsey Graham from South Carolina couldn't get out of his subpoena. He's got to be interviewed about the conversations. And the question in the one track is, did Donald Trump attempt to threaten elected officials to overturn election results? Did he threaten them to do this? That could be perceived as a crime for which there would be a trial. The media is really excited about this. So the DA in Georgia, in Fulton County, is investigating this and has been interviewing people who Donald Trump talked to see if he was making general inquiries, or was Donald Trump plotting to overthrow the election? Was Donald Trump bringing legitimate pressure to elected officials so that they might do his bidding for him? Was he engaged in a conspiracy or attempted conspiracy to overthrow the election? There is another issue, though, that they're looking at. A number of Republicans, Republican slate of electors, for the Electoral College, the Democrats and Republicans both put forward a slate, even the Green Party, the Libertarians, they put forward a slate of people. And those are who you're actually voting for on the ballot. Now, it used to be in Georgia, and they changed it, and I wish they didn't. I wish they would put it back the old way. In Georgia, they actually listed the electors, because when you go vote for president, whichever state you're in, it doesn't matter which state you're in, every single state where you go vote, you are not actually voting for the president of the United States. You think you are, but you're not. You are voting for a list of people to go to the Electoral College. Those are the people who vote for president. You're voting for a list of people. Nowadays, in most states, you have, for example, in that case, it would be Donald Trump and Mike Pence as incumbent, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as challenger, and you vote, do you want Trump Pence or do you want Biden Harris? And you think you're voting for president. What happens is, those of you who, the majority in Georgia, it was Biden Harris. The Secretary of State certifies that these candidates' names got the most votes, and so we're going to take the slate of electors from their party that they certified are their electors and summon them to the state capitol, and those people actually cast a vote for President of the United States. Well, what happened is David Shafer, the chairman of the Republican Party in Georgia, and a number of other people, including a state senator named Burt Jones, who is now the Republican lieutenant gubernatorial nominee in Georgia. They showed up at the Capitol for a closed-door meeting, urged on by some lawyers for the president, claiming that they were going to say they were the actual electors. And if they could get the state or someone in Washington to cast doubt on the slate of Democratic electors, they would stand in place and say, we're the legitimate electors. Now, they weren't, because Joe Biden lawfully won the state of Georgia, whether you think so or not. So they were essentially trying to say they were the real electors, and Congress should have counted their votes for Donald Trump, not the Democrats' votes for Joe Biden. Fani Willis, the district attorney who is investigating this as well, is holding a fundraiser for Burt Jones's Democratic opponent for lieutenant governor. This is a big no-no. This is a big party foul, and the judge has smacked her for doing so. The judge in the case in Fulton County has said you can't hold a fundraiser for the political opponent of a man you are investigating. She herself, the dummy that she is in this regard, has discredited her own investigation by showing she's a partisan, by showing she's willing to raise money for someone who is running against someone she's wanting to prosecute. It's stupid. It was a stupid, amateurish decision. And the judge has now taken away her investigation of Burt Jones. Now, the judge is still allowing her to investigate the other supposed fake electors. I got to be honest with you. I don't know what the crime is. I mean, I'm totally fine if the feds want to throw in jail the chairman of the Republican Party in Georgia. I would be totally fine if you buried that guy under the jail. The GOP might actually get competent again and might not actually start winning races instead of squandering their leads. I mean, the GOP was winning everything until David Shafer became the chairman of the party, and then they started losing everything, including the presidency. And he's been so much more focused on primarying incumbent Republicans than actually fixing the party. I'd be totally fine if they found some way to throw the guy in jail just to keep him out of the picture so the GOP can work. But I don't actually think he committed a crime. I don't think any of these people committed crimes. They showed up, they presented themselves as alternate electors if something went awry. What's the charge exactly? And this is the thing. This is the problem. The press is so broken here. They get Democratic lawyers say, oh, yes, they created a crime. They caused a crime. Congress, you're supposed to transmit the names to Congress. They didn't go to Congress. Congress didn't count their names. I'm not sure how you can claim there was a crime here by these people. You want it to be a crime if you're a Democrat, just like you want Donald Trump to be found guilty of interfering with the election in Georgia. You want to, but your wishes and dreams are not laws and crimes. This has become a waste of taxpayer funds and a political movement. Fani Willis, the DA, bringing in Brian Kemp. If the grand jury testimony leaks about him, of course, it's going to be used to try to draw a rift between him and David Perdue voters again. This whole thing reeks of politics and political ambition. And it started off as a general inquiry, and now it's just become this partisan vendetta by the Democrats and the media. The media is pushing this as hard as the Democrats, and it's really freaking hard to figure out what the truth of the matter is when they're all like, oh, of course they're guilty. They supported Trump. They're guilty. Of what crime? False electors. False electors. Did Congress count them? No. Did the National Archives take them seriously? No. What exactly is the crime? Trump! That's not a crime. That's a political preference you disagree with. There's really not a crime here. The bigger issue is on the pressure Trump brought to bear on elected officials. And even that I'm skeptical of. And I don't think you can get a fair trial either. In Fulton County, if you're Donald Trump, it went 70% for Joe Biden. I think what this really is media wishful thinking, And you may have a bunch of Democrats on a special grand jury say, yes, go after the SOBs, but then they're just as partisan as everybody else. So it's probably time for them to move on, just as it is time for the people who thought the election was stolen to move on. It's time for everybody to stop wasting taxpayer dollars, grow up, and move on.